Tish, welcome back to That Sounds Fun.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for being in person.
Yay. I'm so glad. It's fun.
Best, all the way from Austin, Texas.
Yes. Well, you have fall, and I'm glad to have fall.
Yeah, you get a whole day of it. You can just drive around and see leaves, and it's
so
very
pretty.
cold today.
It's cold. I threw in my coat right before I left, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
I needed it.
We all woke up shocked, just so you know.
Okay.
Everyone was very surprised
Good to know.
well.
All right.
Okay, my big topic before we even jump into Advent. You quit Instagram.
I did.
Do you miss it?
No. Here's the thing. It was a slow downhill, what's the metaphor? Exit ramp, downhill, something.
Yeah, that's what you said in the post. Is you're like, I've been thinking about this.
I've been thinking about it for a year. I had slowed down on posting big time. My work wasn't dependent on it anymore. So I just held on to it kind of as this last thing I felt like I was, quote, supposed to do.
Yeah.
So I left it for a month to see how I felt. And I was like, this is exactly what I want. So.
Wow.
Yeah. I still have my account there kind of as a little flag so that people can go there. Well, first of all, there's links out in the internet, but so that people can see where I'm at.
Yes.
I don't want to just pretend I don't exist anymore.
Yeah, totally.
On the internet.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's not like you didn't leave the internet.
Right.
What was Instagram not being for you anymore? And what was it being for you that both made you leave?
Okay. So second part first, it was a chore.
Yeah.
Back in 10 years ago, it was fun for me.
Yeah.
It was purely posting and purely seeing people's pets and babies and fun things they were doing. Yeah, gardens.
Food.
And then it just got weird, I guess. And I noticed that I was focused on numbers a lot, and I would let those things decide for me how I felt that day. And it just messed with my head to the point where I started creating boundaries, okay, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or do whatever. Or I would have my assistant check things instead of me. Yeah. And it just got to be to where it was it became this huge thing that I had to figure out.
Right.
And so long story short, I just realized that ROI wasn't worth it anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm in a mastermind group with some writer friends. I write a lot more now than I do other things. And she was telling me she just launched a big book thing on Kickstarter, starting a publishing company, blah, blah, blah. And they were really intent on tracking where people came from. And it was 1% came from Instagram. Yeah. And for her, it was sort of this realization of it doesn't matter as much as, quote, they say. As a person, it was messing with my head. And I teach high school girls, or I teach high schoolers. Yeah. A lot of girls. And I know the statistics, and I know the issues, and I know how it's messing with them in particular as a demographic. Yeah. And so I didn't want to be on it and tell them they shouldn't be on it.
Right. When you're looking at their lives and going, this isn't good for your mental health, but I'm fine.
I am totally fine. And I'm not fine. So, and ultimately, I just didn't miss it like I thought I would. I really didn't. Yeah. So I will say there is a trade-off. I don't get to keep up with people like you and some of our mutual friends that are just doing things. But if I really want to know, I can text. I can connect. I can just say hi. I mean, there's enough ways to do it to where it just wasn't worth it holding on just for that.
And is there some level of benevolent detachment, as John Eldridge calls it, of, we aren't meant to know everything.
Well, that's the thing. So I don't know if you've heard of this term called Dunbar's number. It's a
150 or something? How many people you can really know?
So it's this anthropologist.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. His name is Dunbar. But he basically studied that most people in human history have known 150 people or been in connection, in community with. And that includes things like the barista and your mail carrier.
Yes.
So we're not even talking
not 150 phone numbers.
Right.
Right.
And so it's almost it's not a very human app or platform. Yeah. I mean, you could say that with all social media, really. Right. But it was I don't need to know about this random person I met one time at a conference and their vacation right now or their home remodel. I'm sure they're lovely human beings.
Yes.
Go with God.
Yes,
this is great, but I just don't need to know.
Yeah.
So
I often will open my Instagram, and if you look at who you follow, there's an option of who I interact with the most and who I interact with the least. And I will look through that and go, yeah, that is right. I haven't talked to that person in real life in a decade. I can unfollow their Instagram and release them from having to follow me if they feel like but I had a similar experience with TikTok where I got on because everybody was on and I thought it was fun. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, this is taking up so much of my time. I'm not offering anything. I'm just being a consumer.
Yep.
And I don't like how it makes me feel. I don't like how I was not getting as much sleep. I mean, it was dumb. The problem of not sharing a bed is that you can end up watching things much later than you probably should.
Sure.
But so I hear that. What have you done with your time? You're writing more?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm writing more. Here's the thing. That addictive feature, or that addictive nature, is a feature and not a bug, right? So all these apps they're meant to be addictive. So once you get off, you suddenly realize, like, I was addicted. So there's very few of us that aren't. Yes. But it's not because we're bad people. It's because that's just what they're meant to do.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, with my time, it's not like suddenly I have like hours and hours more time, but I kind of do, because even if I wasn't on all that much, it was in my head.
Yes.
And so now that it's not in my head, I'm writing and I'm able to concentrate on more long form. Like, I'm reading more. I can sit still for longer.
Yes.
When I'm in line at the checkout, I'm like reading a book.
On your phone, on a Kindle or something?
A Kindle or audiobook or something,
Yeah.
Like, instead of just mindless scrolling.
Yes.
And so it's like, oh, I'm a person who can focus. And so, and then I'm writing a lot more. Like, my whole thing is book writing. Like, that's what I prefer to do with all my work. So that's what I'm doing more.
I am new to the Kindle life. I got one this summer.
Okay.
And it has changed my life.
Yeah.
Because the Kindle app is on my phone.
Yeah.
And so I can pick up where I left off on my Kindle beside my bed right now if I wanted to.
That's true.
And so Shauna Nequist taught me this, but my discipline is when I'm waiting in line, if you can't just stand here and wait in line, which is my first goal, can you just like stand and wait in line with everyone else and just not be on your phone?
Right.
If I can't, I try go to your Kindle app first. And because I'm trying to do the practice as you're teaching it of extending my ability to focus on something.
Yeah.
And that is not what the internet wants.
And most of us don't. Like, if you do that and you start looking around, you'll see you're in the minority. You're not looking at your phone.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's just kind of the way our culture is now. And I'm not a big fan of that. I really don't want us to just be staring at squares.
I know.
So it just feels like a weird thing to be a slave to. It's really weird. Like, that's the thing. When you detox from it and you back away, Instagram actually seems kind of weird.
So what other rhythms do you have around your phone? And because is Kyle on the internet, your husband?
Barely,
yeah. The kids, do they have social media?
Nope. We won't let them till they're 18. And Tate was on it, my oldest, for a hot second. Instant issues with her mental health, emotional health, relational. And we were like, nope, took it off.
Wow.
And within like 2 weeks, she was back to her normal self. So it was like, it was that drastic. So no one in our family is on social media except for me with Twitter, but it's not on my phone. So I don't check it on my phone.
Yeah.
I don't have any social media apps on my phone. My phone is actually really boring. I purposely also like grayscaled it and made the icons like just plain black and white, which is so weird. Like, why would that matter? But it makes it less enticing.
Yes. John Montgomery writes about that in his Hurry book.
He does.
Of like, turn your phone to grayscale and it'll make it way less interesting
so
to you,
silly.
Which is so insane.
It's like we are pathetic people.
Well,
but
I know it's
what
one of the reasons I have two phones. I have what I call my work phone and my personal phone. But my work phone is literally a tiny computer.
Sure.
That is all my apps, my email, Slack, Instagram, all the things I do for work are there. And in evenings and weekends, it's just not available to me.
That's good.
And so that way my phone is, while it is not grayscale, it is how I talk to people. It is calling and texting, and and I can take pictures, but I don't even have I don't even have Visco on there. All that is over on the work phone. So I'm always like, no, I don't have two phones. I have a phone and a tiny computer.
Yeah.
That's what I have.
Good way to put it.
That is what I have. I have two of those.
Yeah.
So as we're thinking about Advent, give us if you don't mind, give us a little bit of a thought around switching out habits. What does Lent? When we talked at Lent is get rid of things to make space.
Right.
Is that true for Advent too?
Sometimes Advent is called a little Lent. I'm not sure I totally agree with that, because there is a little bit of a penitential kind of mindset, but really it's about preparation. more than, I mean, Lent is too, but this one really is about preparing. It's sort of like when you're preparing for company, or you're preparing for a birth, or preparing for some big thing to happen. That's what we're doing in Advent leading up to Christmas. So in some ways, it might look like kind of what you might do whenever you're about to feast. You're like, we're just going cheap with food this week because we're going to like have this really great food on the weekend, that kind of mindset.
Yeah.
So sometimes people will like do that. And especially like the Orthodox tradition, they are hardcore. They really do fast during Advent.
Yeah. They do.
They do. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. They
the same kind of like no eating, or do they do
they do like
simple?
I think they do no meat. You know what? I'm going to say it wrong. And
So Orthodox, meaning Catholic or even Orthodox Protestant?
Like Eastern Orthodox.
Eastern Orthodox.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So they do a fast during Advent too. That's really interesting.
And so some people will do that if they want to kind of cultivate that preparation sense of like, I can't wait to.
Bummer, but Christmas parties.
That's the thing that's hard, is that our culture is not built for Advent.
No.
So a lot of what what I think works best is within our own homes. So, you can't force people when you're going out, shopping, like stop playing Christmas music. It's not Christmas yet. That's not reality. So the same goes with like Christmas parties and kid events. You're just it's gonna be Christmas stuff.
Yes.
And that's what's hard in some ways, because one of the cool things about Advent is the buildup. So that when Christmas comes, and traditionally it's 12 days long, right? It goes till January 5th.
Yes.
A lot of us are sick of it by then, to where you hear 12 days of Christmas and you're like, no, thank you.
And everybody's like, clean up before New Year's.
Right. But if you can somehow, like within your own homes, delay it or like build up to it, then you kind of enjoy the 12 days.
Yes.
A little bit
more.
more.
This year, one of the things I think is really cool that I'm going to use in my observation of the whole thing, of the whole season, Advent and Christmastide, is that Epiphany's on a Friday. So I'm like, great. Epiphany's on a Friday. I will clean up my house on Saturday, Sunday.
Nice.
But I'm like, no, I want to see what happens if I care about the 12 days of Christmas.
That's cool.
Because Epiphany is my favorite day of the year. I love Epiphany. But I'm not very good at observing Christmastide.
Interesting. Okay.
So, or Eastertide, actually.
Well, Easter's 50 days long. So.
Right? Longer than Lent. I like to remind people. Yeah, I think in the future, like we've kind of created this Advent thing for this year. I really hope to be the person who lets the experts create Advent and Lent, and I'll handle Eastertide and Christmastide.
Sure. Yeah. That's a good way
I'll handle the parties.
Yeah.
I'll let y'all handle the hard ones. I'll be like, and on Christmas, come over here. We're going to start 12 days.
I love that. That's good.
Your Advent. So is this a season like Lent where we put our phones down? Like, do an Advent study, whether it's the Advent series with us or someone else, or, is it a trade out?
Kind of. Yes, you can. So, just like with Lent, it's a gift. It's not a have to, right?
Yeah.
So I think it helps to come to Advent with this idea of like, this is a gift from the historic church that I am invited to participate in. Literally everyone can.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to be from some particular tradition at all. This is for all of us. It's really old, just like Lent. And so there's a lot of different ways to do it per, history and tradition and stuff.
Yeah.
So there's no one set like do this. But, the word Advent means arrival. And so it's when you're preparing for something, there is a slow buildup. And so you could say no to some things at the beginning and then gradually say yes to things.
Yeah.
So sometimes people do that with sweets, which is hard at that time of year, but you gradually increase the sweets or the Christmas music or the decorating of the tree or things like that. But you can also do it in your own, kind of in a Lenten way you can.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to remember that this isn't quite the season of Lent at all. Like even if some people call it a little Lent, I really don't think of it as that.
Yeah, it feels very different to me.
It is. And, I think when you think of like Christmas as a kid, the anticipation's almost more fun than the day itself. If you remember, like as a kid, Christmas night, you're like, oh, that was it. Yeah. I guess I got to wait a whole year for Christmas again.
Right.
And it's because the month of December is so fun.
Yes.
And so it's kind of that idea. Like there's that spirit of like, the hope for it, the waiting, the faith, the joy. All those things are very intentional.
Yes.
Because you're really gearing up for the big day or the big season. So,
right. Yeah, because in my experience, growing up Methodist, so the Advent and Lent have always been things, but we didn't observe it by any stretch compared to what the traditional Catholic Church or even Anglican Episcopalian friends do. But we knew it, right? And I knew it's particularly Lent, but Lent was always like, y'all, this is going to be hard.
Right.
Give it up. Give whatever that thing is up.
Yeah.
And with Advent, it was always like, which family's going to light the candle on Sunday at church?
Right.
And that was kind of like, and we're 1 week closer to Christmas.
Yeah. Well, and if you think of like the grocery stores with Advent calendars, it just feels like a countdown.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of people think Advent starts December 1st.
Yes, right.
And it's 24
and
days.
It's 24 days. That's exactly
and
right.
so we just think of it as the countdown to Christmas more than like it's an actual set aside season in the liturgical calendar.
Yeah. So one of the things when we were setting up the Advent series, talking about hope, peace, love,
joy,
and love, hope, peace, joy, and love, there were all sorts of names for the candles.
Yeah.
Right? So there's the shepherd's candle and the prophecy candle. I mean, it was just kind of like, what? Why do they all have different names? And so do you know, what's the hope? Why are those the 4 things we go after during Advent?
Yeah. And different traditions have adopted different ways of doing that.
Right.
And it's a very strange thing, in my opinion. As someone who grew up non-denominational, it's like, what? I think when I think of it as, now you're going to make me say it wrong.
I know. Hope, peace, joy, love.
Okay. To me, there is a little bit of a logic to that. Like hope is the beginning. So it's that true like start of that anticipation. You know, it's the Sunday. It tends to be the Sunday after Thanksgiving a lot of the times. And so you kind of get that like, yay, peace, in that sense of, okay, we're now in that holiday season. This is great. The joy, you're getting excited about it more. And then the love. The joy tends to be a pink candle.
Yeah, that is. Why is that the one that's pink?
And I have heard different interpretations of it, but the one I like is that it's the Marian candle. And so it reminds us of Mary about to give birth. And so it's that like the last few days when she's expecting.
Yeah.
So it's that like remembering what that must have felt like.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's kind of cool. I don't know if that's true with a lot of traditions, but that's the thing I like the most.
Yeah. That's, I mean, it was really fun researching into those and paying attention to why different traditions call it certain things. And you're like, of course the shepherd one goes along with like, oh, now I understand. That makes sense. And so I thought that was really interesting.
Well, and I think you hit on a larger idea and that is whenever you didn't grow up with Advent, sometimes you feel overwhelmed at all these things.
Yes.
Like you're calling it a billion things. We light candles, but then we also do what? And so some people will just say it's not for me or too much, or why would I add another thing to an already busy season?
Yes.
And I think it's helpful to remember you really don't have to do all the things. You can do one thing. You can literally light a candle every day. Like you said, you can just intentionally listen to an Advent playlist. You can do a scripture study. There's not like a big to-do list for Advent. It's a gift.
Yes.
And so if you feel confused by names of candles, don't worry about it.
Right.
Maybe in a few years you'll want to do more of a deep dive on that.
Right.
Just take what works for you, leave the rest, and don't sweat it. That's what I tell people. Like my book that I wrote about it, it has 5 things to do a day. And I tell people, like, especially if you have like little kids or if it's finals week or whatever, do one of those things. Truly, pick one thing.
But one of the things I love about your book, Shadow and Light, is you give us art to look at and you give us a playlist. So there's always this like full rounded experience around it, but pick what works for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's intentional because, the sensory experience, I think, matters a lot. We're human beings, we live in bodies.
Yes.
And so we're not just heads floating around. So if we just read scripture, pray in our head, and then move on, we're kind of missing out on maybe some of the sounds, the sights, and that's what we like about the holidays anyway.
Yeah, that's what everybody wants. One of the things I've heard a lot, feedback I've had a lot about Advent that I'd love for you to speak into. You're married, you have 3 kids. So when y'all celebrate Advent, it's like a we thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of our friends listening, I mean, our stats tell us half of our audience is not married yet.
Right.
And so half of our friends listening that are not married are going like, I mean, I'd love to observe Advent, but is it just a Bible study? Do I light a candle at my house by myself? Like sometimes the traditions of the Christian church make us feel more lonely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's your advice or thoughts for people who are alone on a daily basis?
Yeah. Right.
When they're trying to observe a season like Advent.
Yeah. It's kind of a communal season, honestly.
More than Lent is to me.
Way more than Lent, for sure. I know of someone who is single in my town who does Sunday gatherings every Advent. Sunday in Advent, that's a potluck. And that's particularly for Advent to, and they do the candle lighting thing. And so they kind of treat it like a family meal, but with a group of whoever. And I don't think it's even just for single people. I think it's for whoever wants to just do it together. Yeah. So I would really advise people, especially because during the holidays is when we can feel even lonelier than normal, to go out of your way to invite people and make it weird anyway.
Yeah, make it weird.
And you can just say like, bring whatever food. You can even like everyone just bring your own meal and let's just eat together kind of thing. I think it's important to think of Advent kind of with that done is better than perfect idea. Like it does not need to look.
Done is better than perfect.
It doesn't need to look Instagram worthy at all. Like do not sweat that you've got all your, your stuff together, that your house is clean.
Yes.
Just gather. And then I think the sensory experience thing is good on those other days of the week. Like, honestly, your Lent can be going on a walk. I mean, I keep saying Lent. Your Advent can be going on a walk. It can be, like recognizing the change in seasons. It can be listening to the place. Like, don't feel like you have to like make it a ceremony. If it feels weird to light a candle by yourself at home, don't feel like you're going to just not do Advent at all then.
Yes. Done is better than perfect. Is that
That's what I said. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I need to hear that because I even I have this like little dream of a small group I want to do at my house, but I keep not doing it because I'm like, I need to get 2 more chairs. If I could get 2 more chairs. No, I don't. I have 2 chairs outside that I can just dust off and bring in. But in my head, I'm hearing the only way this is work is if it's perfect.
Yeah.
And so wait until you have a budget for 2 more chairs and wait until you find the 2 right chairs.
Yeah.
But if we do that with Advent, we will miss Advent.
We will. Yeah. I mean, I'm in that same boat. We live in a fixer-upper, and I'm always thinking, like, when we have sideboards or like baseboards or whatever, and at some point, it's just not going to matter. And people don't care. In fact, I think people are kind of blessed when they come to a somewhat janky house,
right.
More than we realize. People don't want to come into a museum. And so... yeah, don't let that be an excuse. Advent is short, honestly. You think it's 4 weeks long, like
it's so much shorter than Lent. My gosh.
On the calendar it feels like it's a whole month, but it goes by so fast because you're also you've got a lot of things. I think that's the other thing that's helpful to remember is to not go into Advent with this idea of like checking off a list, so that like if you have 3 events in a row, that on day 4 you feel quote behind and you have to do like 3 days worth of something.
Right.
Don't do that to yourself.
Yes.
Just let God talk to you that day. Like, open whatever devotional you're doing and just on that day. Don't feel like you have to catch up. That's a temptation for a lot of us during Advent.
Talk to those certain Myers-Briggs and certain Enneagram numbers who are like, if I don't do them all, I'm doing this wrong. But I say that a lot with 100 Days to Brave or Chase the Fun. I'm like, do not catch up if you're 6 days behind. Just jump in with us.
Yeah.
Like get in here. Let God talk to you today is the right language. That's a great way to say it. Let him say to you today what he has for you today.
Yeah.
You don't feel like you have to keep up.
Right. Yeah.
What is changing about Advent globally? Does it feel, am I in a seat where I feel like more people care, or is there something different going on?
I think there's something different going on. And I thought that too, because I started doing Advent with my kids maybe 8 or 9 years ago.
Yeah.
And because I didn't really hear about it growing up, other than the grocery store things,
Yeah.
chocolate, and at church, like
Yes.
lighting a candle. So I thought maybe it was one of those, like, when you get a new car, you start seeing that car everywhere. So my thought was like, oh, it's just because I'm aware. But I really think Advent is becoming more mainstream, at least among Christians.
Yes.
To where it doesn't seem as maybe intimidating to non-denominational types or just those who didn't grow up with it.
Yes.
And that's really cool because, like I said, it's shared history for all of us, the unified church. And so it's for all of us. It's not just for those who grew up in a particular tradition.
And maybe I just feel, and this may be, I bought a red car, so I see red cars too, but I feel pulled toward things that are old and traditions that are rooted. And I want to time myself to those in some way, and that I don't know that I felt 10 years ago. Maybe it's elections, and maybe it's discord in our nation and in our faith. I feel a lot of discord in our faith between people who disagree, but claim Jesus.
Right.
And so there's something about tying to these things. But can they even find where Advent and Lent started?
I know Lent started, like, we have record of it in just documents in the 140s. So even before we decided what was in the Bible.
Right.
And so in that way, Lent is older than the Bible. I don't know if you can say that. But Advent, I think we have record of it first mentioned in the 800s, 900s.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it didn't exist before then.
Sure.
But so it's been around a long, long, long time.
That is
and I'm with you.
incredible.
I think, we could talk for hours about the whole, what is it that's making us vie for more tradition. But we forget, I think, as Americans, how young our traditions are.
Yeah.
A lot,
In our country.
in our country as well. Kyle and I used to live in Turkey, know, and it was just such an eye-opening experience for us to live in, the place where, the church started. We lived in Izmir, which is the ancient city of Smyrna.
Wow.
And so we would be I remember Tate's third birthday party was at a McDonald's. And across the street was this plaque that said, this is where, what was his name? I forget which saint died, was martyred.
Yeah.
I'm completely blanking, but it's one of those super old, in the first century saints. And it was that is just mind blowing to this American.
Yes.
And so I say all that to just say, sometimes we think, oh, this is old because I'm I don't know. There's old, as in less than 100 years old, and there's old as in 2,000 years old.
Yes.
And things like Advent and Lent, just the liturgical calendar in general speaks to that. And I think when you're not sure what is going on in whatever God is doing in your life and in your church community and whatever, a lot of us are, going through a lot. There's something that feels really grounding about participating in something that millions and millions of people have done over the years.
Yes.
Yep.
It's one of the reasons we worked really hard to make sure the Advent series matched what was happening globally.
Good.
Is you went there are millions of people who are talking about hope, peace, love, joy, and love.
Right.
Hope, peace, joy, and love for the next 4 weeks. And when I lived in Scotland, the building I lived in was built in the early 1700s. And one of my friends was like, you recognize that this flat is older than America.
Right.
And I was like, I don't pay attention to that enough. I don't pay attention to how young our traditions are in our decision. And even in some ways, Protestantism compared to Catholicism and the birth of the church.
I don't know when it was when I realized that, I heard about, what went on in Acts, the book of Acts.
Yeah.
And then Martin Luther.
Yeah.
And it was wait, there were 1,500 years of things. It wasn't just the Dark Ages. There was a lot that happened.
Yes.
And I think we miss out on a lot.
Yeah, that's right. And so it feels like things like Advent, Epiphany, 12 Days of Christmas, Eastertide and Lent, and then Ordinary Time is so boring. Ordinary Time wears me out. This year when I don't know if you saw something on the internet either, but my sister had a baby that passed away, but he lived 56 days, so it was a long summer of of sadness. And multiple times I thought, this is so ordinary time. Like this would happen in ordinary time.
To me, that sounds like such an Annie thing to say, like an Enneagram 7. Because to me, I like by the time Eastertide's over, I'm grateful for ordinary time. That's just me. I don't know what it is, but I like that. So
that makes it. Yeah, I can hear that. That it's like I don't need another celebration or another start and finish.
Right.
I just want to live for a little bit,
and that makes me excited about the season because Advent is the new year of the liturgical calendar, right? So in some ways, the first Sunday is like Happy New Year for the church.
Yeah.
And so you get this build up, like you get Christ the King Sunday, All Saints Day, All Souls Day. And then Advent, and it kind of feels this like, yay, new year, new you for the church.
Yeah.
In a way. So
I don't think I realized that. That is the start. I mean, that's why it's at the top of the liturgical calendar circle.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense for our like actual calendar, our Gregorian or whatever it is, but it does. Yeah. Wow. There you go.
What do you know about Advent now that you didn't know when you started with the kids a decade ago?
Ooh, that's a good question. Let's see. I didn't know. Okay. You know how you were saying earlier, like that had to be hard to deny yourself certain things? For me, I didn't know that I would kind of look forward to a little bit of that self-denial during Advent. Because in my mind, when I started doing Advent, it felt like, well, why would I add one more thing?
Yeah.
And I think what I realized was it's not adding more, it's giving myself permission to savor. So instead of feeling this pressure of like making every day special during Advent, I actually can week 1, we put our tree up. Week 2, we put the lights on.
Oh, wow.
Week 3, we decorate it. And then I'm not dying to take it down on December 26th. So to me, it's like and when I first heard that, I was like, why would I do that to myself? I'm like, I love Christmas. Why would I do that? But it's actually good for me. It's kind of like doing the hard thing. Yeah. Like, doing the workout. You're glad you did it. It's kind of that idea.
Right.
So, yeah, that's probably it.
And it really, the savoring is such a good word for me because I think one of the reasons I want to clean up Christmas so quick is, okay, we're done. Let's go. To the next thing. Mm-hmm. And the practice of my actual life is not rushing through this to get to that.
Yeah.
Because it does not serve me.
Right.
It actually does not serve me in the long run because it means I rush through everything because there is no next that I savor because I'm trying to get through.
Yeah.
And so even the process of, could the discipline be to leave my Christmas tree up that long?
And it's weird because like I love New Year's Day. To me, there's that like clean slate feeling.
Yeah.
I love that. It really is this almost weird hold on just a little longer to make it more of what I feel like maybe God's inviting us to do. Like, no, keep celebrating.
Yes.
Keep being excited that Jesus came to earth.
Yes.
And then a lot of traditions end with a 12th night party, which I've always wanted to do because I think that sounds like such a cool way to do it. And people will bring their trees and create a big bonfire and burn it. There's a lot of cool ways to like recognize, okay, the next day when we do Epiphany, then it's almost like that's the new year.
Yes.
Sort of.
Yes.
I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I could. Epiphany's the one, man. If I ever have kids, I want to name one of them Epiphany.
Okay, why do you like it so much?
I think that it's really profound to mark the day that the wise men came to Jesus.
Yeah.
I just think there's something about, and I like the word. I think the word means a lot, and that you know something you didn't know before. And Mary talking about treasuring things in her heart.
Yeah.
That day. So I just have, for probably 5 years since Epiphany of 2017 was when I had a really profound experience around Epiphany.
That's cool.
And I've loved it ever since.
Do you do the chalking of the door? Do you know that tradition?
No, what is that?
A lot of traditions will do this. You chalk the door, like you write with chalk on the outer frame of your front door.
Yeah.
It's CMB, and I can't remember what those letters stand for in Latin.
Something in Latin, right?
And then you write the year.
Okay.
And it's supposed to mean basically like you're blessing your house for the year.
Oh,
and you're saying like those who walk through this door frame will find what's inside to be a haven.
Wow.
And so a lot of traditions will, like as a family, pray, and then they'll pray throughout their house.
Yes, and you do it on Epiphany?
On Epiphany, yeah.
Oh, I'm doing it this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah.
What are y'all's family plans for Advent?
So I teach English and my kids are still in school, so we don't like go anywhere, right? We have school at the same time. So those first few weeks kind of feel busy. And I bet a lot of parents understand that feeling, right? You're just kind of living life.
And when Christmas comes, I think Christmas is a Sunday this year.
Yeah, it's a little
weird. So a lot of
weird.
people won't get off work or school till a midweek.
I know, it's
or
a weird
Friday
thing.
Even.
So I go with that. I don't sweat it. But at night, as a family, and I mean, I'm talking like I've got an almost 18-year-old and almost 15-year-old and 12-and-a-half-year-old. So I've got older kids, but we still make a point to light our Advent candles. We put them in a log, and we go through Shadow and Light, and we listen to the song, and it's based on the Psalms, so we read a psalm, and a lot of times we do this over dinner. So, because we're gathered anyway, family dinner is a big deal for us. Like we really try to keep that sacred. But I've got like a kid who goes to bed after I do because she's up writing papers. It's like we're past that age of like tucking her into bed. That's just not a thing. So that's what we do. If we skip a day, we skip a day. Not a big deal because that's just how it rolls. Yeah, that's what we do.
I mean, Tate's last Christmas at home.
I know.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's a very weird thing. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. But yeah.
Oh, that is wild. Yeah. Well, okay. Is there anything we didn't say about Advent that you think?
I think maybe don't be a purist. Is maybe sometimes like people will be almost too rigid about it.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to be rigid.
Don't
like
do it.
If you want to listen to Christmas music, listen to Christmas music. Don't feel like you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be a little more rigid with yourself on Lent.
Yes.
Because you're meant to feel.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is anticipation. So sometimes we like sneak the chocolate, and we go ahead and listen to the Christmas music. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love getting to talk to you, and then Thursday on Thanksgiving, having Father Mike, to get this like round experience of the unity of the church.
Yeah.
And how we are all, a couple of times of year, we are actually doing the same thing. You know?
It's rare.
And I just think it's beautiful. I
Mm-hmm.
love it. I love, every part of the body working together is better.
Amen.
I think.
Amen. Yeah.
I like it so much better.
I think Jesus likes it.
I do too.
I'm just going on that.
I do too. Okay. Well, Tish, the thing I have to ask you, because the show is called That Sounds Fun. Tell me what sounds fun to you these days. What are you doing for fun?
Okay. Like you said, it's Tate's last year at home. I have been showing her like movies that I want to make sure she sees before we leave the house.
What were some of the top ones? What'd you have to see?
I mean, and they're not like important.
No, but they're important
like
to you.
Breakfast Club or Pretty in Pink.
Yeah.
Things like that. So for me, it's like when she became a senior, I realized like, oh no, there's all these things that I always thought one day. And so we're just trying to enjoy it. So we have a chalkboard in our house of just like when Kyle and I think of a movie, we'll write it down. And so we've just been doing a lot of family movie nights, watching like classics.
Yes.
Like 80s movies, 90s movies. And it's not just teen movies either. It's also like we showed them Braveheart, things like that. It's just movies that to us are like, you got to see it, even if you don't end up liking it. But
have y'all watched Flight of the Navigator?
Yes.
Okay,
we love it.
I love it.
I loved it when I was a kid, and I was glad to see it still holds up.
It still holds up. Those stairs when the UFO opens,
I know,
still blows my mind.
They're still good. Yeah, there's some that do not hold up.
Yeah, right.
But that is not one of them.
No, I was so as soon as Disney Plus had it on there, I was like, oh, this is the movie of my childhood with Sarah Jessica Parker. Snacks. How do y'all snack during movie time?
Depends on who's hungry.
Yeah, good point.
Okay.
Don't have to eat.
Yeah. I mean, popcorn sometimes. His new thing is making kombucha.
Oh, wow.
So we have like a whole shelf in the fridge.
Oh my gosh, of like different age things.
It looks like a mad science lab.
Yes,
in our
I'm
kitchen.
sure it does.
And so he's like pouring different things. So sometimes we'll like sample kombucha over movie night, which sounds so hippie. I just realized what that sounds like.
It's very Austin of you. Well done.
So hippie. I don't know. We have what's called scrounge night. Like I don't cook on Sunday. Nobody cooks on Sundays unless you want to cook for yourself.
Got it.
And so it's like raiding the fridge. So a lot of times it's like you're eating an apple and some carrots. All right. You do
great.
you. Someone else is eating a bagel.
Scrounge night. What a great, sort it out, everybody. We'll help you Monday through Saturday, but Sunday is scrounge night. Great. Whoa. And you just let them eat whatever's in their hearts.
Yeah. Honestly, I
They're
mean, I care.
old.
They're old.
Yeah.
They'll understand if they eat not great stuff. They'll feel it.
Right. That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
If you don't have protein, you're going to know at 2 o'clock in the morning you didn't eat protein.
And they'll remember.
You'll do it different.
Yeah.
Tish, thanks again for doing this.
Yeah.
You've been such a good leader and friend to me, but a great leader in observing parts of our faith that that really matter to me. So thanks for doing this.
Thank you for having me. I love talking this stuff.
Yeah. Here comes Advent. Let's go.
That's right.